We know a lot about plants, but sometimes we don't know how to do the simplest things correctly, like dividing and planting them. I've been working with plants for over 30 years, dividing and planting a huge number of them every year. I've gained some experience, so I'll try to lay out the basic rules and show you how to divide and plant perennial flowers properly. The rule of thumb is whatever blooms in the fall, we divide it in the spring, and whatever blooms in the spring, we divide it in the fall. The planting unit, the so-called division, should have well-developed buds and roots, but it shouldn't be too large itself. Throw away all the old parts without mercy. Choose the younger pieces. You can tell them by their lighter color. The roots shouldn't be bent, so if they're very long, you can even trim them, including the thick rhizomes on peonies. When planting late in the fall, remove all the leaves. But what if the days are still warm? Then you can leave some. You shouldn't plant too deep, but don't leave the growth buds exposed on the surface. As we fill the planting hole with soil, water it several times so the soil settles around the roots and there are no air pockets. After planting, you should always mulch. The water won't evaporate, the soil won't get compacted, weeds won't grow, and in the winter, the mulch will also serve as insulation. So, is there a difference between spring and fall planting? Technically, no. But if you're planting from a container, you should first soak the entire pot in a bucket of water. Then carefully remove the root ball without breaking it apart and gently place it in the planting hole. But if the plant has been in the pot for a long time, you should remove some of the old soil, and if the roots are circling, gently spread them out. And one more little detail. Many people think you need to put a lot of fertilizer right in the planting hole, and the plant will be happy. In reality, that's not quite right. A hungry root should have to search for food. That's what makes it grow. Therefore, you should always separate the fertilizer from the roots with a layer of plain soil. It's best if the fertilizer is a slow-release type, meaning it will feed the plant over a long period. There are many of these available now, especially synthetic ones, but there are also natural options that work for a very long time and won't harm the soil or the plant. You can divide plants in two ways. You can dig it up completely and separate it into pieces. This is how I divide my astilbe. My soil has been worked over for years, but still, before planting, I prepare a special mix tailored to the needs of the plant and planting. Here I have soil conditioners and various additives, but I won't bore you with my specific recipes. I do things on a more professional level, but for you, it's enough to use what you can find. Compost, wood ash, and a little fertilizer. I just find it convenient to mix this in a bucket first and then add the required amount when planting. I add the fertilizer not just to the planting hole itself, but to the entire planting area because the roots will spread out beyond the little hole we prepared for them. I lay the roots down and cover them with soil. At first glance, it all seems very simple and no different from regular planting. But in reality, it's fundamentally important not to stuff all the nutrients right under the root, but to distribute them over a wider area for the future. The second way to rejuvenate or divide a plant is not to dig it out of the ground completely, but to just cut off a part. And here's the most important thing with this method. The resulting hole should not be filled with old soil. Instead, bring in fresh soil along with nutrients. The plant will send its new roots into this area and recover quickly. In 2 to 3 years, you can do the same thing to the other half. What are the advantages of this method? You don't have to wait for a small division to gain strength and start blooming. The plant will flower again the very next year. You won't have gaps in your flower bed, and it's also physically much easier than digging up a huge clump. You can divide almost all plants this way, except for those with a taproot. So, let's review the main points. When dividing, take only the young parts. When planting, don't bend the roots. Add nutrients and soil amendments not just to the small hole, but to the entire area that the plant will occupy in the future. Then, All we'll need to do each year is a little top dressing and adding fresh organic mulch, which will turn into fertilizer over the season. Well, that's all there is to it. Grow beautiful, healthy flowers for your own enjoyment and for others to enjoy. All the best to you. This was Veronica Polivkina. Until next time.